If everybody can take their seats, we're going to start. All right, I'll start. So I'm Aaron Sofian. I'm the lead organizer for RAC Illinois. I live in the city of Chicago. I use he, him, his pronouns. I want to thank everybody, each and every one of you that has come all the way this today or has not come all the way, whatever, just since you have traveled. We appreciate you coming, being here. We want to thank Eitz-Chaim and Rabbi Jesse Wehner for hosting us today in this wonderful space. I hope you enjoyed the ice cream. Ice cream is always good, so ice cream and social justice, right? So the first thing I want to do is just point out a couple things so everybody knows where they are, and then talk about what we're going to get to tonight, and then we will get started in our program tonight. Sorry. So first, I just want to point out that there are bathrooms through the doors over there in the place where we ate ice cream. There are male and female bathrooms out through these doors. There's an all-gender bathroom if you go to the office. There is an AED also right out there if we were to need it, just in case, so everybody knows, and there's a security guard out front, so everybody knows that we are safe. I want to say also that we have congregations from all over Illinois, from all of our collar counties, from our city, from farther out, and so I want to thank everybody for being the greater Illinois area and the Reformed Jewish community of Illinois for coming. So thank you again. So everybody knows where we're going tonight. We're doing our welcome. We're going to talk about the agenda. I'll go over the goals at the end, then we'll do a quick devar from our lovely host, Rabbi Wehner. We'll talk about our listening campaign for a little bit. We'll talk about our how we try to create change in Illinois, at RAC Illinois. Then we will talk about our listening campaign for a little bit. Then reveal what we learned from the listening campaign. And then we will get to get up and move around, and we will do a breakout. We will do some breakout groups where we do some brainstorming, and then we'll talk about next steps, and we'll get all finished up. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. And I just want to remind everybody, our goals for tonight, so everybody knows what we're trying to get to, is one is just being together in the same room. We haven't gotten to do that in a very long time. We know how, I'll just use the word pleasant and inspiring it can be to actually be in the same room with each other. And so that is definitely one of our goals. But the other thing is to understand what is going on with RAC Illinois, how we try to create change, and what the next steps to be part of that change are. So with that, I will invite Rabbi Jesse Wehner to come up and speak to us.
So it is not lost on me that while we're all gathered here today, that 60 years ago tomorrow, thousands of people gathered in front of the Lincoln Memorial to draw attention to the continuing challenges and iniquities experienced by African Americans in the century following emancipation. Amongst the speakers, and you may or may not know this, was a rabbi named Joachim Prinz. He was a Berlin-based rabbi until he fled the Nazis in 1937. And Rabbi Prinz opened up his speech with these words: "I speak to you as an American Jew. As Americans, we share the profound concerns of millions of people about the shame and disgrace of inequality and injustice, which make a mockery of the great American idea. As Jews, we bring this great demonstration in which thousands of us proudly participate, a twofold experience, one of spirit and one of history." 60 years ago, Rabbi Prinz stated that what we have known for generations, and a calling that we still feel today. We are Jews, we are Americans. As Jewish Americans and American Jews, we continue to heed the call that we have carried with us since ancient times. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. This charge has led to a long and proud history of social justice work within the Reform movement. And we, as Reformed Jews, have largely been successful helping to bring about change because we took heed from the words of people like Rabbi Prinz, who continued in his speech by saying, "When I was the rabbi of the Jewish community of Berlin under the Hitler regime, I learned many things. The most important thing that I learned under those tragic circumstances was that bigotry and hatred are not the most urgent problem. The most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and the most tragic problem is silence." As members of RAC Illinois, we are gathered here today to proclaim that we will not be a part of the problem, that we will use our voices to help make Illinois a more equitable and just state. Each of us is called to use our voice to stand up for the injustices that we see in our state, but it is only as a community, continuing to work hand in hand with our congregational communities and with our communal partners, that we will truly be able to bring about the Illinois that we hope to see for each of its residents. Our Jewish tradition teaches us to act over and over again by reminding us to welcome the stranger, because we were strangers in a strange land, by teaching us that anyone who destroys a single life is considered to have destroyed the world, and anyone who saves a life is considered to have saved the entire world, and by inviting us to do justice, to love goodness, and to walk humbly with God. Rabbi Prinz concluded his speech with this call to action. Our children, yours and mine, in every school across the land, each morning pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands. They, the children, speak fervently and innocently of this land as the land of liberty and justice for all. The time, I believe, has come to work together, for it is not enough to hope together, and it is not enough to pray together, to work together that this children's oath, pronounced every morning from Maine to California, from north to south, may be a glorious, unshakable reality in a morally renewed and united America. May this, too, be our call to action today. May each of us speak up and speak out, working within and outside our communities to help create the reality of a morally renewed and united Illinois and America.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Weiner. Can you all hear me? Okay. I'm Julie Weil, and I have been a leader and involved in RAC Illinois since its inception, which was a little bit over 5 years ago. I'm happy to be with you today and talk a little bit about how we do what we do and why we do what we do. So when I was younger, I was lucky to spend time with my grandmother, Ruth. She was an outstanding baker, gardener, knitter, card player. She was very smart. She graduated 9th in her class of 1,000 students at Von Steuben High School in 1936. I really admired her. But whenever our family would be together and discuss politics or problems in our country, she would throw her hands up in exasperation. What can you do? That's the way it is. And although she was born in this country, I'm guessing this resignation was passed down to her from generations back in her Eastern European family, who likely experienced a whole lot of powerlessness and despair. It was a few years after my grandmother died that I was introduced to the power of community organizing, something I consider to be an antidote for inertia and hopelessness, and a blueprint for the promise of democracy. I saw firsthand how community organizing transforms ourselves and brings us closer to the world we envision, that Rabbi Weiner so beautifully described, a world of fairness and compassion, where the dignity of each individual is acknowledged, and a world of empathy and solidarity and taking care of one another. And it does so by building a civic power base out of our relationships. And this unified base is capable of making significant change. So this is how it works. We build relationships by sharing our stories with each other. We identify shared concerns. We research how to solve the problems we care about. We select a specific campaign that will make an impact. we act together to make that specific change, and we celebrate and evaluate and start all over again. Many of you in the room have been activists probably for much of your lives, and we all have causes that we care about, letters we write, money we donate, marches we attend, and those things matter, and they are meaningful, and they move the dial. But I have seen that when we organize, we're all moving together in the same direction with one single purpose at a time. And the collective focus and power can make big things happen. I'm assuming you see the fish on there. So let's just dig into this cycle of organizing so that we understand it a little more clearly. The listening and relating phase. At a time when I think people feel more individualized than ever, community organizing challenges us to sit down with another human being and ask them what matters to them and why, what's shaped them, and what their dreams are. It can definitely feel risky and a little countercultural to speak so honestly with another person, but it's also contributed to our congregations being places where people can feel truly heard and seen and understood in ways that epitomize what's really sacred about a faith community. And it also draws in new people who we might not otherwise get to know. Engaging in these conversations helps us build communities in which members know each other beyond the friendly Shabbat Shalom at services, where we're responsible for one another and ultimately have a claim on each other. And it enables us to ask each other what we're willing to do to build the world we want. We also organize so that we can build sacred relationships across lines of difference, different race, faith, and economic positions. While it's certainly true that we are more powerful when we act in partnership with others, it's also deeply in our values to see the divine spark in the other and to get proximate to stories that are different from ours, and to come to more fully understand how our lives and well-being are intertwined with that of other communities. And to be honest, and this might be something on your mind, in a world where anti-Semitism is unfortunately thriving, it helps us feel less vulnerable when we have a web of communal relationships. So as a result of our listening and relating, we're able to gather what we've heard and identify priorities that we want to address. And this is actually the reason we're assembled today. We've completed this part of our cycle. Over the last several months, we sat down in small groups in our congregations and we asked each other, where do you see the brokenness in the world? And we listened to what you said, what everybody responded, and we heard some common themes and answers, which we will share and hear a little bit more about very soon. So then after the listening and relating and identifying concerns, we move to research. This is a period of learning about the top concerns we've identified. We will soon meet community and advocacy groups, coalitions, and legislators to learn about how they're experiencing or relating to the problems we've identified, and to hear of any possible solutions that we could work to enact. And as a result of this research, we will have information that will help us to select an actual issue campaign. So I just want to point out the difference. Identifying a broad concern or a problem is different from selecting an issue to work on. Like, for example, racial injustice is a problem, but an issue that can be specifically addressed to confront racial injustice might be, for example, like the passing of a state law that makes housing discrimination illegal. And we'll take many things into consideration together as we select the issues campaign that we're going to choose. And some of those things that we'll think about are, will this campaign have a significant impact on people's lives? That's what this is all about. Is there deep and broad support from our base for this campaign? Is the campaign grounded in Jewish values? Will we have strong partners to work with? And will our actions as a Jewish community play kind of a unique and needed role in the overall campaign? And will the campaign actually help RAC Illinois to become more powerful and build our own base and help us grow? Once we choose our issue campaign, then we'll develop strategies and actions that we believe will lead to success. This could include educating members of our congregations more broadly to bring them into our efforts, meeting with legislators in key districts, phone banking, writing witness slips, attending rallies, and more. And hopefully, and I will say very proudly that RAC Illinois has an excellent track record, hopefully we will be successful, and when we are, we celebrate. Sometimes we do this by gathering in person as RAC Illinois or with our partner groups. Sometimes, unfortunately, in the era of COVID, we've had to do this online. But it's important to take a moment and acknowledge what was accomplished and to feel good, to feel joy. I don't know about you, but sometimes the problems in our world cause so much fatigue and burnout and depletion that it's important to revitalize ourselves through joyful celebration. And then, of course, because we're Jews, we need to get analytical again so we can continue to learn and grow and ask ourselves what worked well, what didn't, how could we have improved part of our campaign, and what might still be needed in order to defend the win and make sure that it's long-lasting. And then, sure enough, just like Rosh Hashanah rolls around again every year, we will begin that whole cycle of organizing again. We are also fortunate to be able to participate in the RAC's national campaigns, which use this same strategy that I've described to address issues at a national level. And the RAC is currently working to urge the White House to strengthen some climate change regulations. And I'm guessing that some of you in this room also have participated in some of our voter engagement efforts during election years, which we help us focus on voter registration and education and turnout. And if we do our work well, we see transformation. Our efforts change lives, and we feel changed too. We know people in a deeper way, we feel part of something bigger, and we feel our agency. And when we gather with our families and hear our children and our grandchildren talking about all the things that are wrong in the world, we don't have to say, what is there to do? We say, we know what to do. So I am now honored to call upon my friend, Jack Kaplan, who is a fellow RAC Illinois leader, and he's going to just share one concrete example of how this cycle of organizing that we just discussed comes to real life in Illinois.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Kaplan. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a proud member of Macomb Solwell Lakeside Congregation in Highland Park. I've been a member of the core team for RAC Illinois now for about 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years. So Julie just did a great job of kind of taking you through the arc of kind of our organizing model and the various steps that are involved in that. I'm going to share with you just one recent example of the work that we've done and what our role was in that work, just to give you, just to illustrate kind of the way we operate and the impact we can have on issues of importance in Illinois. So as an example of our organizing model, I'm going to share with you the work we did to address an issue of racial justice reform. Racial justice reform was identified along with immigration reform as one of our 2 priority issues in an earlier listening campaign before the one we've just recently gone through. So in 2019, the research committee that Julie described conducted a series of meetings with prospective partners involved in criminal justice advocacy. And based on the significant impact that cash bail had on a large number of people, particularly Black, Brown, and low-income populations, we decided to participate in a coalition focused on efforts to end cash bail in Illinois. The Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice, a coalition that we had talked to and discussed this issue with, serves to connect organizations working to reduce pretrial incarceration in Illinois, and more broadly, to end mass incarceration and address the root causes of socioeconomic and racial inequity in our legal system. As one of more than 30 organizations that are part of the Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice, we won our campaign to end money bond at the conclusion of the legislative session in January 2021. The Pretrial Fairness Act was part of a larger criminal justice omnibus bill, and this win of this bill makes Illinois the first state in the country to completely abolish cash bail. So what did we do? What was our role? How did we help accomplish that incredible goal, that incredible achievement? Well, RAC Illinois organized virtual meetings with nearly 20 legislators who represented them in the districts where their congregations were located, where members were located around the state of Illinois. More than 20 RAC Illinois rabbis participated in a faith leader sign-on letter, and several in an online victory press conference. I think actually one of the pictures was of Rabbi Sarada at one of those events. Further, more than 100 leaders from over 15 Reformed congregations participated in a range of campaign actions that included teach-ins, legislative town halls. We had a virtual lobby day because we weren't doing anything in person at that point, and phone and text banks. Through these and other actions, RAC Illinois leaders generated hundreds of emails, phone calls, and texts to legislators, helping secure the exact number of votes needed for the Pretrial Fairness Act to pass in the House and get to the governor's desk for his signature. In a bill where literally each vote counted, the relationships that Reformed congregation members had with local elected leaders turned into meetings that turned into yes votes that helped make a difference in the outcome of that decision, that vote. Sharon Mitchell, who is the former director of the Illinois Justice Project and currently the public defender for Cook County in Illinois, has said that, quote, RAC Illinois provided incredible value to the Coalition to End Money Bond and Illinois Network for Pretrial Justice's efforts to end money bond in the state of Illinois. Without their effort, our chances of passing the bill would have been severely diminished. Just last month, the Illinois Supreme Court issued a decision finding the Pretrial Fairness Act constitutional and directing courts across the state to implement the law and end the use of money bond on September 18, 2023. So less than 1 month from now, that law will go into effect, and we will finally be able to see the impact that has. And let me share with you a little bit about, let me now go back and talk about the significant impact this law will have. This victory will impact literally hundreds of thousands of people in Illinois. Each year, Illinois incarcerates more than 250,000 people, approximately 90% of whom are held pre-trial. Despite being legally presumed innocent while awaiting trial, thousands of people remain in jail simply because they cannot afford bail. The money bond system targets low-income individuals and people of color. Black and brown defendants receive higher bail amounts despite being less able to afford bail and disproportionately incarcerated prior to trial. Even temporary incarceration, no matter how short the period of time, can lead to a host of issues for those individuals, including lost housing, lost jobs, and negative health outcomes. The implementation of the Pretrial Fairness Act will make Illinois the first state in the country to remove the price tag from the presumption of innocence. Ending money bond addresses both economic justice and racial justice issues in the pretrial system. We continue to work with our coalition partners to protect and defend this landmark legislation from threats to undermine or compromise the thrust of this law. So that's an example of the work that we are able to accomplish, and we're very proud of that. A number of you in this room have played critical roles in that. We thank all of you, and we look forward to working with you on issues of social justice in the coming years as we hear about the results of our listening campaign and decide on going forward, what should our research team look at? Where are the opportunities to partner with coalitions? Where are the opportunities to really have an impact on issues of import in the state of Illinois? So, thanks.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Julie, both for that. For both of that. I'm not going to introduce myself again, but I get the wonderful chance of actually getting to talk through the listening campaign for a minute and all the wonderful things that we got to do out of it. And so we called this listening campaign Tashema, which can mean come and listen. But the rabbis also used to like to say Tashema meant come and learn from one another. When we listen, we also learn from one another. We got to do that in our listening campaign all across Illinois. I'm going to share with you some stats because they're fun and they're sort of great, but we also know that statistics don't tell the whole story. People and their stories are what it was really about. We had more than 350 participants. We had more than 40 facilitators come to our trainings. We had 16 congregations be part of this. We did listening campaign, house meetings or meetings in congregations from Bloomington to Vernon Hills. We even had an elected official come to one of our house meetings. But we also know, like I said, stats don't tell the whole story. We heard from teens, we heard from parents, we heard from grandparents, we heard from Jews that choose to belong to congregations and Jews that don't choose to belong to congregations. We heard from Jews that live in the city. We heard from Jews that live on the north side and on the western suburbs and everywhere in between. Like I said, we really did try to hear, and we did hear from so many different people. We listened to each other's stories, and we learned from that, and we grew united by listening to each other to make change. We know that by working to fix any one of the many places that we heard about the brokenness of the world, we create a world and a place that we can actually work to fix all of those things. Each time we work on a little piece, we actually make the puzzle come together a little more, and we can make that puzzle be a better world and a better Illinois. But now we get the chance to actually hear a little bit about what came out on the issues and what people actually talked about for the brokenness of the world. So I'll invite Rabbi Daniel Kurzena.
Hi, I'm Daniel Kurzena. I'm the Associate Rabbi at Oak Park Temple in Oak Park, Illinois. We make it easy at Oak Park Temple. And before I was here in Oak Park, I spent a couple of years in Overland Park, Kansas. And there, I thought that I could make a difference in state politics. I was like, okay, I'm going to come to Chicago and forget about it. But I got to tell you, I was in some of those meetings that Jack talked about with elected officials that were really listening and really asking questions. And it was because of raise your hand. Seriously, raise your hand. It was because of people like those whose hands are raised who were sitting around the table who said, this is what I know and this is what I want, that they changed their votes. It was beautiful to see. You're not here just because your rabbi asked you to or just because you got an email. You're here because your opinion matters. It makes a difference. So I gotta tell you, I'm genuinely inspired by the model of community organizing. I'm sincerely and authentically motivated by what happens here at RAC-IL, Illinois. I would not stand here and lie to you from the Bema before the holidays. Seriously, it is real. And so later, when we go into our breakout sessions, that is not the time to check your phone. That is the time to check in to those conversations like the ones we've been having in Oak Park and elsewhere, like Aaron said, to hear what is on the minds and hearts of our community. And in particular, what is on the minds and hearts of our community that rises to the top of the level of urgency. And what we're going to do, just to fast forward, is once we reveal to you the big surprise about what the issues are, we're going to look for ways to make a difference because problems are gigantic and we can't solve the problems, but particular issues are places where we can have an impact. So, in all of these talks and all of these conversations all around the state, we heard two issues consistently and repeatedly rise to the top. They were the issues of gun violence prevention and barriers to affordable housing. Do we? Yeah. Great. So you can see it here. There's a lot of the faded out words in the back of the word cloud are really important issues, but the ones that are bright and bold are the ones that were coming up in the conversations I had and the ones that you had too, issues that we really want to try to take head on. And so, like Aaron said, the statistics in the word clouds are lovely, but it's personal stories that really make a difference. So we're going to hear from two people, one on each of these issues. So first, it's my pleasure to invite Meta Levin to speak to us about our first issue.
Hello, my name is Meta Levin. I live, should I put this down a little bit? There we go. Hazard of being short. I live in Highland Park, Illinois, and I'm a member of Macomb Solel Lakeside Congregation. As most of you know, on the 4th of July, 2022, my community became a member of a club to which we never applied. It's a club with members across the United States and, in fact, the world, and one with members that, until that day, seemed far away. Each time I walk through Highland Park's downtown area, I am reminded that the world is broken. The gunman fired on the unsuspecting parade goers from the roof of a well-known building there, and I have friends, members of my own congregation, who still find it difficult to walk past that building. In a community that once felt safe, we now feel vulnerable, in the same way that anyone who has experienced gun violence does. The same weekend that Highland Park landed in the national news, 15 people were killed from gunfire and another 60 were injured in Chicago. We now know what families feel in many neighborhoods in Chicago and even in Waukegan, which is the county seat of Lake County, which is where Highland Park is located. On that day, I experienced something I never had before. My normally laid-back husband recognized the sound of automatic weapons fire from his time in the military, and with screaming people running toward us, put his arm around me and propelled me home, all the while pointing out places we could hide if the gunman came toward us. So now those streets and those buildings are reminders that the world is broken. The world is broken, but we can work together toward repairing it.
Thank you so much, Meta, for sharing that personal story. I'd like to invite forward Julie Evans and her family now.
Yes, I'm Julie Evans, and to share our family story, I brought my husband Dave and my soon-to-be 24-year-old son Miles. Actually, in 2 weeks he'll be 24 from this exact day. We're from nearby Glen Ellen, and we've been members of Congregation at Time for more than 20 years. From the time that Miles was born in 1999 as a person with a lifelong disability, Dave and I have shared an ongoing concern about how Miles will live when we're no longer able to care for him. This lengthy journey has involved educating ourselves, advocating for Miles, and listening to Miles as an effective self-advocate. Miles has lived in Glen Ellen for his entire life, and he built a strong community for himself there. As he's grown into a young adult, Miles achieved a great deal of independence through his education, a steady job, community volunteering, many social connections, and 14 summers at Camp Shy, we consider him an honorary Wisconsin resident. Miles tells us he wants to continue living in the community that he knows and loves, in his own home someday with friends. We want Miles to have that choice for himself in where and how he lives. For his dream to be possible, Miles needs access to affordable, inclusive, supportive housing, just like many. As Aaron and I discussed my talk today, we hit on that brokenness that exists in the world theme because of the multiple barriers to expanding options for affordable housing. Increasing affordable housing is an issue that no single family can achieve, nor can any single community. We must act together across communities to move this needle in a positive direction. And I do feel the potential to repair the brokenness as momentum builds to achieve our goals.
Hi, everybody. Let me ask you to put your hands together one more time for Maida, Julie, Miles, and Dave. All right. And then I want you to put your hands together one more time for yourselves for identifying the issues that RAC Illinois will be working on in the future. Now, look around to you. You are in a very special group. Some of the people you may know well. Some of the people you may only know from the Zoom screen. But let me tell you one thing about all the people in this room. They are social justice warriors. Okay, we have heard today about two problems that define the brokenness of the world. These are big problems. Let us not fool ourselves. But we are social justice warriors. It's the truth, and I actually took my grandchildren to see Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, and they could really save the whole world. So imagine what a group of Jews can do. Okay, so how do we begin to address these things? Before we can formulate a campaign, which is a sequential order of activities with a desired end. And our end is ending gun violence. Let me hear you say it. Removing barriers to affordable housing. Look, it's not that hot out. It would have been a good excuse before, but today is a beautiful day, so let's try it again. The two issues are ending. Thank you. There are some older people here who need loud volume. Removing. Great. All right. So the way we begin is we break down these big problems into manageable issues. We begin to find solutions by understanding the complexity of the problem and identifying leverage points to address this problem. So, step one is defining the issues that compromise the problem. In a few moments, you will get a chance to work with a small group of social justice warriors to come up with a list of issues that could be ways to address the problem of ending and removing barriers to? All right, once we have a set of possible issues, we need to accept that we can't do it alone. Yeah, I know. Maybe we could, but it's always good to have others with us because, as we know, more people equals more power. So step 2, what you'll do in your small groups, is to generate a list of potential allies. Who else is working in this area? Again, as a group, we can do some group thinking and some brainstorming about who we know. And if nobody comes to mind right away, just take a moment to think about who has been flooding your email and text stream recently. I call this part of the process shidduch making, finding good partners. And while we're doing these 2 tasks, issue development and generating lists of allies, we need to think about what strengths we need to build into our community to be successful. I know, we all want to work on tikkun olam, right? Right, thank you. But in addition to our desire to repair the world, we must also have a greater understanding of the issue. We need to know how to engage others around this issue. We need to know how to engage the leadership of our congregation, be that clergy, board members, or other leaders in our congregation. We need to think about how comfortable we are in meeting with elected officials. How do we do that? How do we set up a meeting? How does it work? And how do we hold them accountable? We need to also understand the list of advocacy strategies that Julie addressed. So, here's the deal. You've been sitting for a while. You're itching to get up. So in a moment, we will break into small groups. Each group will have a facilitator. Facilitators, could you stand up? All right, let's give these brave people a round of applause. Okay, here's their job. They will lead you in a brainstorming session around possible issues to work on. Remember, the issue needs to be related to the problem. They will assess our strengths by generating a list of potential allies, organizations, and other leaders that we know. They will help us create a list of the skills we need to strengthen or to develop. And finally, they'll provide items for our mobilization to-do list. And then finally, after you've done all this work, we'll come back here and we'll be motivated to go out and get the work done. But we all know that a list of ideas without a set of commitments is a futile exercise. So I'm just telling you, in the end, you will be asked to think deeply about what are you willing to commit to do to address these 2 problems, which are and okay, you got all right. So in a moment, I'm going to give you a moment to think which one of these issues you want to work on. Now I know, you want to work on them all. And you can, do not be disappointed. But for today, for right now, for right here, you need to pick one of them. Okay? And so while you take a moment and think, confer with maybe your best friend next to you, are you going to go to the same one? Do you want to split up? You do that. While you're thinking, I'm going to ask the facilitators for removing barriers to affordable housing to go to this wall, and the facilitators for ending gun violence to go to that wall. All right, just the facilitators. Just the facilitators. Look, I can tell we have an eager group. All right. So if you are interested in working on removing barriers to affordable housing, please stand up. And could you go over to this wall where the facilitators will divide you up into working groups and take you to either room 10, 11, or 12. Okay, all set? Great. All right, then I assume the rest of you, for now, for today, want to work on ending gun violence. So please follow the facilitators into the social hall. Find a table to sit at. If there are empty chairs at your table, you're at the wrong table. So move.
If other people have flip charts, we'd love to have a flip chart. Does the microphone help everybody to hear? I think we may. I think we may. So.
Let me just say, I am a serial killer parent.
Yeah.
And I have a speech-to-text scale.
Okay.
And so I won't be making a lot of eye contact because even with the microphone, I'm not real good at hearing.
Good. Does the microphone help, though? It's quite all right. Does the microphone actually help you at all, or is it?
Especially with people with soft voices.
Okay. So, well, thank you. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you for joining up for this and for being a part of this discussion for today. And I'm not going to do a lot of talking. I mean, that's really the idea is to, for me to, that's why I brought my notepad so I can write down things. But so to start with, we want to talk about the issue of removing barriers to fair housing. And so we want to make a list of what are those barriers and what are the things, you know, and really just brainstorm. So this is not about saying, oh, not that, you know, I mean, it's really just, you know, the idea of brainstorming is to build on what other people say and to keep sort of moving forward, just making the list. So it's not really about sort of getting critical about the list and saying, oh, not this, not that other thing, right? I'm looking around, it looks like you've brainstormed before. So, so we'll try and pass around the microphone for your benefit. And you know, here, let me give you the microphone. Because I can't hold a pen
Okay.
and I want to write down sort of the issues, you know, as you come up with it. So what are barriers?
Could we perhaps at least say who you are and from where?
Sure. Now, please figure out you get really close to the microphone. I'm sorry. Do you mind being first? Can you introduce yourself?
Don't mind being first. I do mind having a microphone next to my mouth. My name is Sandra Sokol, and I'm from Temple, from Oak Park Temple in Oak Park, Illinois.
Diane Weil, Beth Emmett in Evanston.
Doris Gould from Shalom in Glencoe.
Marcia Sheila Rabbit from Beth Tikva in Hoffman Estates.
Leah Sutson from Beth Shalom in Naperville.
Ike Rada from Macomb Soleil Lakeside in Highland Park. I'm one of the rabbis there. So that's kind of amazing in and of itself that we're all from different places. Right? How do we do that? Yeah. I appreciate that. So barriers. What do you see as barriers to fair housing?
Community resistance.
I would say low income jobs.
In some areas, the availability of vacant land and the cost of that land.
The gig economy, where people's income is unknown, uneven.
I may be a pain in the neck, so I could stop talking. I spent part of my career dealing with fair housing. I live in a community where we spend a lot of time on the issue, and what we talked about up there was affordable housing. You're using the term fair housing. They're not the same, and affordability is different for everyone. And money, obviously, is an issue. Jobs are an issue. Everything you all talked about are barriers. But I live in a community, the closest to our community that really is involved and has been involved. You said Evanston, right? Is Evanston. We need to define terms, frankly. And I can't speak for Evanston, but I know a lot about Evanston. We in Oak Park have the most, because you used the word of poverty and low income, and that's not necessarily, someone did. We have more housing for low-income people than any other place around. And if we're talking about low, it means low income, whether it's for seniors or for others. And what used to be called Section 8, you don't call it that anymore, it's voucher programs. And we have diversity in and among, and by the diversity, I'm talking about race, not religion, because there aren't a lot of Jews in Oak Park. Anyway, so I may not talk, or I may. And I actually felt really badly for the Etzheim family, and we have a wonderful building in Oak Park that I helped to get, and it's for people with disabilities, people with affordability issues, because our kids, they can no longer afford to live in our community, and many of your communities are way more expensive than our community.
Could you say one sentence, if you could, about the difference between affordable and fair for people? Because I've heard the distinction, but
Well, fair housing really means discrimination. And affordable housing means what one can afford in regards to livability. You know, when we bought our house in Oak Park, because it was years where everyone thought Oak Park was going to become like this community of Austin, and we were told not to buy our house. And our house, we bought 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms for $30,000. When we sold our house that was in 1972 when we moved to Oak Park, and we put lots and lots of effort working on all kinds of things as volunteers, and then I wound up with a job in later years for our community. So we're in our condo in Oak Park for 17 years, so figure this one out. And when we sold our house 10 years ago, actually, because we couldn't sell it, and we sold it for, I'll say, around $500,000. When we were looking for housing, everyone said, go to Evanston. We don't know diddly squat about Illinois. We're from New York. And they said, move to Evanston. We wanted to live in the city. They said, your kids have to go to private schools and Catholic schools, and we're not. But, so the Evanston houses that were equal to Oak Park, plus it's not convenient to the U of I, it was so much more expensive. So we couldn't afford it. So for our $30,000 house, it was $43,000 in Evanston. So am I sort of clear about affordability and fair housing? And there are laws in this state, and they are strict, and realtors are punished if they don't follow the fair housing laws in regards to discrimination. Oh yeah, of course, of course, of course. Well, I've been a tester myself, so.
Okay, so I was thinking that like our healthcare system and benefits affect people's affordability for housing. The fact that our whether you have benefits and the kind of benefits you get is dependent on a full-time job, and if someone wants to work what a full-time job requires, it's very hard if you have an hourly job to obtain that amount of obtain that amount of hours to be employed by them. So then you have to, people working 2 and 3 jobs and then not qualifying for the health benefits, and they end up in medical debt because they don't have enough benefits to pay for their medical bills, and so then they can't afford housing that way.
Single-parent households, which make it very difficult for the parent to find childcare, which means they probably can't have a full-time job.
I'm sure we haven't exhausted, but there's 3 other groups that are also talking about this, and they'll also come up with other impediments, you know,
There is another term which is very common right now, now, and we're working on in our community, and it's called the missing middle. And it's because what's going to be happening in our community, we have a lot of housing for low income, and then we have high income, and then people like me, retirees, and young people who are teachers or police people or fire people, they can't afford to live in the community, so they're leaving.
So the next step is to go to sort of the next phase and start talking about who are potential partners, any organizations you may have worked with or heard of, or so I think Judy said you know, filling your inbox or things like that. Politicians, you know, again, we're brainstorming, so it doesn't matter if it sounds, you know, well, this sounds all in all, but what about, you know, you never know, right? So
we can just use, sorry, I just have a question. When you said politicians, we can use like current electeds to help with being allies?
You've got, you know, a connection.
Yeah, okay, I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Rachel Ventura, she's a senator, state senator. I'm sure she'd be on board with everything we're doing positively. I am from Hoffman Estates. No, she's not mine. She's not mine. But I do have I know her personally. Like, I reach out to her easily. Yeah.
Okay, we're in part two.
I am a retired elected official. All of the elected officials that are in and around Oak Park State, Congress, etc., and I'm not bragging.
So some of this may be for the next part where we ask people what they're planning,
Yeah,
you
well,
know, what they're able to do.
but
You're a resource.
well, I'm a resource, but also I think what's really missing, and it has to do with us, the faith-based, and I hate using those terms actually, faith-based communities are major contributors to housing, affordability housing, and I think, and the Jewish ones, of course, are all up north. We have nothing. They don't give a two hoots about the western suburbs. And there are major ones. The Lutherans do a great job. Some other Protestant groups. I don't know about the Catholics that much, but in the country, there are Jewish ones. And up north, because I was looking it up. So faith-based communities, which that I'm not that connected to.
When you say a faith-based community, do you mean like a Covenant Village or something like that, where a particular denomination endows a housing development? Right. I had one other idea, which I don't know a lot about because I'm going to a meeting about it tomorrow morning on Zoom. But there is a federal housing grant available for affordable housing now, and I know that JCUA and some other groups are getting together to try to see if they could coordinate. There was one grant that was run for the city of Chicago. They're looking for something that could be used in the suburbs. I'm not sure. I haven't been to the meeting yet, but I mean, to access federal funds and grants to help create new housing.
Say, organizations that advocate for the disabled? I don't. No, I was thinking of groups for which affordable house.
These are also, this is a very local issue. These are local issues.
Because it's going to depend on the individual town, city, ordinances, set-asides, those kinds of things. So local city council people, depending on what the focus is, how focused we get for the issue. Right, I mean, there's all sorts of, builders who are, but builders, they have to work with the cities, and sometimes they're required to make a certain percentage affordable. So I think it really also depends on what jurisdiction we're looking at.
I can think of two other organizations. One is Open Communities, and they successfully passed a law in Northbrook that anytime new multifamily housing is built, there's a set aside for low-income families. Not necessarily below the poverty line, just how they define low income, so that people who work in the community can live in the community. That's Open Communities. And I had thought of one other, and now I don't remember.
I don't know. I just went to this, there was this legislative tour in Maryville Academy. It is Catholic, but they do help with, abandoned kids, and they help house them, and even pregnant teens, and there's a whole system over there. And there was a legislative tour, so there's also legislators on board with them. So if we could all team up, I think there might be scope for that.
Well, this isn't wild. Jan Schakowsky is my representative.
So we're in Cook. So, we're pretty lucky in Cook, actually, and in the state of Illinois, too, currently, with most of the people who we have elected and who are working for us. Just think if you lived in a place like Florida or Texas. Oh my God.
But it's interesting to think about it, that when we had the listening sessions, this is something that emerged here, right? So we talk about this all the time, that we have people who mostly agree with us, right? And we're very lucky to have that. And yet, we still have this problem, right? So what else can we do to push levers, do you think people in their own congregations know enough about this issue? Right? What about that sort of aspect of
I could speak for, I think that our temple in general does. In general, I'm sure there are a few who don't, but in general, I think that we do.
I think a lot of people are recognizing that they have kids who can't live as well as they live, and they have they're noticing some of these things in kind of a general sort of way, and I'm not sure that anybody's really galvanized. So we have that sort of aspect. We have to kind of galvanize our own efforts.
I do agree that an educational component to this would be very beneficial, in order to motivate people to action, including like our own people in our congregations.
In the old days, my old days, being the oldest person here and in other places too, when we were moving to Oak Park, chose to go there, and the realtor told us that we shouldn't live in the neighborhood that we were buying our house, and told us to live near a certain school, which is closer to the temple. And we aren't black, so Jews were excluded also from a lot of fair housing all around the country. But what individuals did, and this is something I'm personally interested in, I wish I had a lot of money, folks started chipping together money, people who cared about Oak Park, not the ones who were fleeing, and they started to buy properties, and they would then work towards having the community integrated. And then at that time, the housing center came into being for fair housing, rentals, as well as home ownership, but then it became just, rentals to make sure we had fair housing and all of that. So the migrant issue, or the unhoused currently, is preying on my mind, and it fits into this, and I personally would love to buy property with other people to help house the people who are living in police stations and temporary whatever. But no one wants to chip in with me, including my husband.
This is exactly the kind of brainstorming we want on the list, right? So organizing your group to actually buy and build a property, right?
There are, in many communities, families of adult disabled children who have gotten together and bought homes, and they're group homes that the families own collectively, so that their adult children can live as independently as possible, whether that means there's a full-time caregiver living there, but all of the residents are able to work in the community at some level, have some independent level skill, but it's taken the parents of these disabled children to make it possible.
And there are organizations as well as individuals. We have 5 different ones of group homes, single family, that have 4 to 5 disabled. I think that's the wrong word again now. It's a new word. I can't think of it. Just like I don't know what your pronoun is, and I'm not going to remember. But they exist, the organizations, and so they're out there.
Okay, so like step 1 was the education piece. I think something else, this is a wild one, okay, but like to get like a lawyer together and like what is it called, like the clerk person in the city, and like actually write up like a bill and like ask to like propose this. So at whatever level, like at the local, like at the city council level or at the state level, I mean, we can start with city council, right? And then we would need like like a lot of expertise in different areas, but like, and like specialized in each town, what that would mean. But instead of like someone like you who's willing to chip in, like let's have it to be everyone, you know, so that it's not, doesn't fall on someone's shoulders or isn't like a charitable act, but it's more a community responsibility. So that's a big ask. That's a big ask for. If there's an existing, yeah, if there's an existing bill, but if there's not an existing bill for affordable housing, then to create one, basically, is what I'm saying. It's a lot to ask for of RAC, but if we could team, if there's enough of us.
Putting together some kind of uniform letter that people who want to then send to their city council or their city trustees or whoever they are, or their state rep or their state senator. I mean, that's something that could be uniform that an organization could put together.
I was hoping the others are coming in here done.
Perfect. Yes, exactly.
And then I'll go scribe whatever I was able to scribble down. Great. Anything else?
I guess the thing I mentioned about the communities, that was kind of an action because those people actually changed the board in the city of Northbrook to get people who were amenable to their cause. But the other thing I thought about is a couple that were recognized this year by JCUA who live in Highland Park and are part of an organization of they consider themselves like not venture, but investment capitalists, and they put out no-cost loans to people who want to build housing for, you know, middle-income people and low-income people. And I could be, I don't know the name of it, but I just know that, you know, as those loans are paid off, the fund is, reestablished, and it's been pretty successful in getting actual places built or renovated for housing.
Maybe like an FHA, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, in terms of, because that's the other barrier, is not only the cost of it, but loans. You know, I mean, people who are struggling with affordable housing, from the cash to buy, they don't have to get a mortgage. So governmental entities that already help to see what resources they have for our community.
Can everybody grab a seat? Can we have everybody sit down, please? All right, thank you, everybody. I know it's hard to stop talking, but we only have 2 more things to do and then more time to talk. Yeah, and there's actually a little more ice cream, so that's true too. All right, so I want to thank everybody for participating in the brainstorming groups. I hope that everybody found it meaningful, inspiring. We came up with some good ideas. We got to talk to people who we got to talk and listen like we were talking about before, and hear good ideas, hear from each other, hear how we may be able to work together and solve the brokenness that we all feel. Now I'm going to hand it over for next step to Jim Axelrod.
Thanks, Judy. Aaron, thank you. And thanks to each of you for being here this afternoon. Look around. This is what change looks like. It's all of us in this room. Together, we are RAC Illinois. And together, we hold a vision where social justice is not just a distant aspiration, but our present reality. We've spent time today breaking into groups, pooling our knowledge, and brainstorming ways to create meaningful impact. But remember, ideas alone don't create change. It's the actions which follow that do. This is our time for action. And to make it easy, I'm going to ask you now to look at your phones. So please take out your phones. This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Check your phones. I want you to bring up a browser. I want you to go to www.rac.org/. All right, I'll go slow. I want you to go to rac.org and then /commit. And for people like me who have difficulty with spelling, there's only 1 T in commit, but there's 2 M's. 27, so it's all one word, commit 27. Okay? As your browser opens, you'll see there are 3 types of commitments. So please follow along as I go over the form. Well, that's what we're going to do. So you just have to open it up and take a look at it right now. And then I'll go over with you the 3 types of commitments we're asking you to make today. So the first commitment, I commit to educating and mobilizing my congregation/community around these 2 issues. Judy, what are the 2 issues?
Come on, help me out. And remove barriers to affordable housing.
Excellent. So some of the examples we're asking you to do is I will take these 2 issues back to my congregation. I will discuss what I learned today with members of my congregation. I will speak to my clergy about what I learned today. A leader from RAC, Illinois will be in contact with you to help you with this. So that's just the first commitment. The second commitment, and this is a multiple choice. You can choose one or the other or the third, or you can choose all three. Commitment number 2, I commit to participating in one or more upcoming research meetings on these issues. I will come to one of the future research meetings and help decide our next campaign. I want to help with a meeting with RAC's partner organizations to learn about potential campaigns we could be part of. So those are some examples. And the third commitment, I commit to participating in citizen advocacy for RAC Illinois' next campaign. Once we've picked a campaign, I want to take part in actions that make a difference, including working with my congregation to convince people to work on this campaign, calling legislators, filling out witness slips, attending or participating in legislative meetings, participating in phone banks, canvassing, educating people on the issues, and much more. Many options for you, so please select one of these simple steps or as many as align with you personally. It's got to come from your heart. Please commit to at least one. That's all we're asking today. Now, I know the voice in the back of your mind is saying, what difference can I make? Trust me, when we unify our small actions, they aren't small anymore. They become a tidal wave of change. By committing today, we move from being passive supporters of justice to active architects of a better future. So let's make it clear. This isn't about waiting for change to happen. It's about being the change. It's about us, right here, right now. Let's not be bystanders. Let's be the movers and the shakers for ourselves and for generations to come. I thank you very much for your participation today, and I give it back to Aaron.
Okay, lastly, firstly, in every way, I want to thank everybody for coming. We have 2 minutes, and we are going to end on time because a good meeting, a good convening ends on time. What I would like everybody to do for our very last thing is look around and find somebody that you know and look into their eyes. Try that first. All right, now look around and find somebody you don't know and look into their eyes. All right, has everybody done that? Okay, the reason I ask you to do that is because sometimes the rabbis tell us the eyes are the window into our souls. What I want to tell you is our eyes reflect back our community. And we just did that. We looked around and we saw the community that is in this room. We are not just a community that comes together because it's fun. We're a community of purpose. And we heard about that purpose tonight. And so I want to make sure everybody walks away in this room knowing we are not alone. There are people in this room that want to help, and there are people in this room that are going to help. I know I am one of them. So if you are willing to help, I would like you to raise your hand right now, and we are going to end looking around at all the people who are willing to help build and fix this world and fix the state of Illinois. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for participating, and can't wait for the next steps. Thank you guys so much.